yeah, man, like I seen everybody tweeting, to have us two connect, and I'm
Yeah,
happy that we was able to make this happen. So thank
for
you again.
sure.
Thank
No
you.
doubt, man. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for your voice and everything. Just following your story it's been amazing. So glad you're kind of doing this, full time, I guess now, or maybe
Oh
not,
yeah.
but it seems like it. So
Oh yeah.
glad you're able to do that.
Yeah. It's definitely a full-time job. So this is my co-host Blakely,
How
and
you doing, Blakely?
Hi, nice to meet
Uh,
you,
I
Justin.
love your name. That's awesome, Blake.
Thank you. I follow
she's
you
one
too.
of three.
Thank you.
Now I was going to say she's one of three co-hosts, and
Okay.
the other two they couldn't join because their schedules didn't align. But they have. I submitted some. They sent me a whole bunch of questions. I know I sent
Okay.
you some. I won't ask you all 20 of them, but we'll definitely just skim through the question.
Yep.
We'll get right into it.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
If you send John and the Reverend to Washington, those $2,000 checks will go out the door.
We will be able to pass $2,000 stimulus checks for the people next week.
We'll deliver the $2,000 stimulus checks. And that begins with the $2,000 stimulus.
When you send me and Reverend Warnock to the Senate, we will pass those $2,000 stimulus checks. You send me and Reverend Warnock to the Senate, we will pass those $2,000 stimulus checks.
They will make decisions about whether we give people a $2,000 check.
We need to pass $2,000
Show me the money.
stimulus checks for the people.
Getting people the $2,000 relief, direct payment.
Congress should pass
$2,000 checks.
Show me the money!
So welcome everybody. It's a Smalls World. We have a very special guest with us tonight, Justin Jackson from the NFL Chargers, the LA Chargers, is with us tonight. This man has been a vocal voice on the left for the last several months. I've been watching this man tweet at politicians, get on their backs, get on their necks about the things and the gaslighting. And I've definitely been in support of everything he's been speaking up about, especially the Medicare for all. We all are affected by that. It's a human right, basic human right for us to have free Medicare. And I'm excited to have this conversation tonight. And I know the audience will be too as well. So I'll go over the name of Chris Smalls. I'm joined by my co-host Blakely. And once again, it's a Smalls World. So welcome. So Justin, for the audience that don't know who you are, briefly, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? How was you brought up, and give us a little bit of background about your upbringing and your rise to the NFL.
Sure. Yeah, like you said, I'm Justin Jackson. I'm from the suburbs of Chicago, kind of northern suburbs, about 40 minutes outside of Chicago. Went to Northwestern, which is about 20 minutes north of Chicago, right along the water there. And yeah, I've been in LA the past 3 years playing for the Chargers. Yeah, growing up, man, growing up was interesting actually because both of my parents, my dad's from Detroit. He moved when he was 18, went to college in Chicagoland area. He grew up in the inner city. So I would go back, there a lot. Just he loved going back and visiting family. And I thought that 5-hour drive was the longest drive in the world, so I used to hate it. But it was really good to go out there, and I actually got a really good perspective, man, of just because obviously growing up in the suburbs, my dad kind of made it out of that.
Yeah.
And then going back, it was kind of a real kind of wake up call for me, just as a young person, kind of seeing the two different worlds. And then my mom, originally my mom's family's from Mississippi, but my grandparents moved to Chicago, lived in the inner city in Chicago pretty much until I was like 10 or 11, and my aunt made enough money to pretty much move the whole family out of the neighborhood into kind of a suburb as well. But I spent a lot of time at my grandparents' house as well because it was just about 30 minutes away. And once my mom passed away, my dad wanted to make sure I spent a lot of time with my grandparents. I have a lot of cousins, a lot of aunts and uncles. So I spent a lot of time in the inner city there as well. And I think I learned a lot kind of what kind of in the scope that I deal with now in politics and stuff. I see and saw at the time I didn't really know, but now I'm looking back on it, seeing that those communities are really the failures of both parties. And particularly, a Democratic Party, which is historically supposed to be supporting those working class people, especially people of color in those communities. And obviously I failed to do so for a long time, really since the Reagan era, completely abandoned that. So that's kind of the scope I come at it from. And just being able to see the two different worlds, kind of the world I grew up in, my actual childhood in the suburbs, but then spending a lot of my childhood in the inner cities of Detroit and of Chicago as well. So I really come from everything from like an activist background, because I know that that was my family. I mean, that was my parents' childhood. That was my grandparents' childhood and adulthood, obviously. So that's the scope and lens I always look at these problems from. And it's really informed my activism and just my political ideology as I kind of came into my I guess, political prowess kind of during the 2016 election. When I was 20, I was in college at Northwestern. And that's really kind of when I had my political awakening. And yeah, I felt like I pretty much grew up in a liberal household, but we didn't talk about politics really ever. Probably the one memory I have of politics is Obama's, election in '08. But other than that,
Yeah.
not much political talk at all. So I kind of came of it from sort of a liberal ideology, but then I kind of was very fresh onto the scene of politics. So it didn't take me a whole lot of time to kind of really come into my own on that progressive side, because I didn't really have a whole lot of deprogramming to do, I guess you could say. And so, yeah, ever since then, I pretty much have tried to use my platform as an NFL player, obviously, to advocate for those policies and those things that I think that we need. I mean, I don't think we need it. We need it, obviously. And you saw, I mean, you've experienced a lot of that as well. So just fighting for people like yourself, people like my parents, people like the communities that my parents come from, and even that I come from as well.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And you mentioned that you lost a parent, you lost your mother.
Yeah.
You don't mind speaking about it. How did she pass?
So yeah, I was 3 years old. And she had a really aggressive form of breast cancer that had kind of metastasized into, other organs and stuff like that. So it was very aggressive, very quick. And obviously she was very young. She was only 31. So it's kind of very surprising and a shock for my family. And just if I could kind of share the rest of the story, I've shared it,
Yeah.
at the Force the Vote Town Hall and some other platform as well. But I think it just really speaks to, the type of issues that we have with our healthcare system, and then the type of trials and tribulations that not just my family, but thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of other families face every single year. And it's that, obviously going through the emotional trauma and everything of, losing a parent, losing a daughter, losing a wife, all that type of stuff, which is, very hard for anybody. But when I got older and kind of started getting into my kind of political frame of mind, I wanted to kind of inquire back to my family about kind of how that affected our family financially at the time. And basically what I found out was that my mom was afraid to continue to seek treatment because, obviously she had just going through chemo and just a lot of drugs and a lot of stuff that costs a lot of money. And we have, my dad he's an engineer, worked a middle-class job. And so did my mom. So we had insurance, but even at the time, she was worried about continuing to seek that medical treatment because of the financial strain it was putting on our family at the time. And I just think, of being in that situation, my dad's just the most caring and loving and awesome human being. And that the fact that he was having to raise 3 kids, knowing his wife is dying, and also thinking about how am I gonna, support my family financially if I have to keep, getting treatment for my wife. And then just from my mom's perspective is like, you're fighting for your life to stay with your family. And then you're having, even the thought is having to enter your mind about finances and if I want then treatment and all and how that might affect family once you're gone. It's so fucked up that it's hard to even talk about, but it really makes me pretty common. My family is pretty common because a lot of families go through that, with 500,000 medical bankruptcies every year, 68,000 people dying every year without, because they don't have access or can't afford healthcare. It's very common, and it's very sad, and it's why, at every single opportunity we should be using our platform, using our voice to fight for something that we should already have. We
We
should
should
have
already have.
decades ago. So
Yeah, unfortunate. It's so unfortunate to hear that, if there was a policy that was in place like Medicare for all, your mom possibly could still be here.
yeah.
And I just think about the millions of families that lost their health care throughout the course of the pandemic, and how, right now we're still waiting on our third stimulus check, which is, it's ridiculous to be in the richest country in the world, quote unquote, and the most powerful country in the world, and to be suffering the most, and watch these politicians get on TV and get on Twitter and get on CNN every single day in and day out, gaslighting the American people. And speaking about gaslighting, we were promised $2,000 checks, and now it seems that we're going to get $1,400. And not only that, it's 40 million people are going to be unqualified to receive, the way it's being framed, to receive the $1,400. So what are your thoughts about that? Like, how do you feel about, first of all, how do you feel about, just Joe Biden gaslighting the 2,000?
Well, I mean, Joe Biden is a proven liar. He's he's lied his way to the presidency, really. I mean, so did Trump. But yeah, I mean, he's a documented liar. So, and I this is a bold one. I will say this is a very bold one. And and I'm, one of his biggest critics, obviously, and I didn't even expect it to be this bad. And the funny thing is, and I was just talking to actually Kyle Kalinske, who does Secular Talk, about it, was that they're hammering away 1,400, then they're like, okay, we'll lower the threshold to 50K. Well, maybe we'll bring it back to 75K. And they talk about it so much, they almost want you to forget that they promised 2,000.
They do.
I mean, it's like that whole conversation is out the window. It's just like, now we're, they move the window, really, I guess the Overton window just on this particular issue has already moved so far right. And, it's like, it's sad to see that we have to fight for these crumbs, right? Like, we have to fight tooth and nail just for these crumbs. And these people are supposed to have the pulse on the country. They're supposed to actually represent people. No, they're all millionaires. They haven't come within 10 feet of someone who's struggling, and so middle-class Joe is leaving all middle-class people who are also struggling out of his stimulus plan. And that's just where we are right now. This country is super sad, but
Also, I love how the idea that somebody who lives in New York City who makes $50,000 is middle class.
Like, right? Oh yeah.
No.
LA too.
Yeah, or LA. Yeah, like you're no.
You're not even close. I mean,
this isn't, but again, it just, first of all, it's not 1970, number one. Number two, it's like, it just shows again how ridiculously out of touch they are. That they think that that's what the like proles should live on, but they would never. Like, I would love to be like, okay, why don't you try living off that? Try.
I'll even go a step further. I say try living off of $15 an hour minimum wage.
Oh, totally. Which I love so much, how Joe Biden just totally undercut it. Was like, well, I know I said it was going to be in the bill, but it probably won't make it in there anyway. It's just like, oh, that's a great starting point. Great starting point to advocate for your policy, to be like, yeah, I know I said I was gonna, put it in there, but I probably won't make it in the final bill.
And yeah, and he pretty much the same thing with student debt. He wants to push it to the Congress, where he knows it'll fail, because I mean, we can barely get Joe Manchin to support $1,400 checks, let alone 2,000. And he'll never support, something like student debt cancellation. On top of that, they won't even support the end of the filibuster, which they're not going to get anything else through anyway, other than maybe another one or two reconciliation bills. So, I mean, this is the political, footing that Joe Biden comes into it with. And really, that's just a neoliberal, I mean, he's really a neocon, but that's just a neoliberal way of doing things. You saw it with Obamacare. You go in, you negotiate with yourself away pretty much everything. And then you land on something that, okay, yes, will help some people. But like you said, you leave out someone making 55K in LA or New York City who desperately needs this help. right? And I mean, if you just give that person money, you might gain a voter in 2 years or 4 years. Like it's just the easiest game of politics you could ever imagine. Yet they're so bad at it. It's almost like they want to be bad at it, or like they have some other interests they're protecting.
Yeah.
What blows my
I
mind
mean,
is
it already got proved that like giving people money works. They did a study in the Rio Grande Valley showing that there were a certain portion of people that lived in Texas in the Rio Grande Valley that voted for Trump because they were surprised by it. They were like, oh, why did these Mexican people vote for Donald Trump? And when they went to go investigate it, they found out that it was simply because they got checks. When you give people money, when you help people, and he had signed them, it was because he's a marketer. And it was like, oh wow, what a shocker. Yeah, when you give people money, this is universally true. They are going to be more likely to support you. And that's with everything. And that's the problem with means testing shit. If you just give everybody money, then you can't demonize anybody.
Right.
When you start means testing shit, you create resentments and you create somebody to scapegoat. And then you can be like, oh, it's those people. It's those people. It's like, well, you can't do that with Medicare because everybody gets Medicare. You can't do that with Social Security because everybody gets Social Security. But leave it to the fucking Democrats to be like, why don't we means test it and make it so this person gets this and that person gets that? So then you're just creating resentments with people. And the Democrats are going to end up giving less money to people than Trump's administration did.
Yeah, which is just, I mean, it's hard when you think about it. It's like, it's hard to even comprehend that you could have a Democratic president giving less money than Donald Trump, who is widely resented. And I mean, that's how you're going to start off your administration. And as far as means testing, you're right. Like when you means test things, you're telling me someone that makes $75,000 and $1 doesn't deserve this relief? Like, where are you going to draw that line? It's just unbelievable because, like you said, it creates resentment. And then you're going to have people that make 80K mad. Like, okay, I deserve this. Well, now they're like, well, fuck it. You know what I mean? And so if you could just give people the money, just give people the money. They need it. They could use it. Even if they don't need it, they can save it. That's fine. That's not a bad thing. And those people are going to end up putting the money back into the economy anyway.
That's what blows my mind the most. It's like, we got millions of dollars from, militarization. We have millions of dollars for, whatever the fuck. Why can't we make the mistake and give more money than we need? Just make a mistake. Joe Biden and the rest of them, please make the mistake and give us more money than we're supposed to get.
And also you notice that there's never any like, let's just get it out the door. When it comes to the military, there is no debate about that package. It just goes out the door. Same thing with the First CARES Act. The First CARES Act was a total corporate giveaway and a huge transfer of wealth to the top that every single person in the House and Senate voted for, I think with the exception of maybe one person. And when that happened, nobody was like, hold the phone. There is a $500 billion slush fund for corporations. We need to stop. We need to means test it. We need to check this out. No, there was no conversation during the military spending or during the First CARES Act where $500 billion was given to a slush fund to corporations or where all the money was transferred to the top in that almost $4 trillion CARES Act. There was no discussion. But when it just went out the door. It just went out the door. Give the money now, ask questions later. But when it comes to giving money, a $1,400 check when you bitches said 2,000. But when it comes to giving money to regular people, working people, when it comes to that, all of a sudden the calculator comes out and all of a sudden the deficit matters. And all of a sudden we need to target and we need to talk about who really needs it. And we need to talk about, well, maybe we really need to look at this and say, we need to have a discussion. Okay. I was watching just a little bit because I wanted to see what they were saying about it. I was watching, which I rage sometimes watch, like MSNBC, because I fucking hate it so much and it makes me so mad. And that really annoying shill for Michael Bloomberg, what's his name, Jonathan Capehart, was like, this was his response. They were talking about somebody saying they were against a check. And I thought, because it was such a shit argument, I thought he was going to defend the checks. And he goes, but like a parody that he is, and like MSNBC is, because they're just corporate hacks. He goes, yeah, I had a friend text me who was really wealthy, and she said she actually didn't need the check. So, and I have a lot of friends who said they didn't need the check. So I actually think that, like, we really need to look at that. I was like, oh my God, I thought you were going to like defend why people should have the checks. And you're out here being like, I actually think less people should have the check.
Yeah, I mean, Rich, that just goes to show who his circle is too, right? Like this is what I mean when I say these people haven't come within 10 feet of a working, struggling person unless they were trying to get their vote, or shaming them into voting for them. Since I don't know when. Because if you think that if you could even float in this moment 50K, you're completely out of touch. You shouldn't be representing anybody. Nobody. If you could even think about lowering the threshold to that. I mean, 75K is still too low. Listen, my oldest sibling makes 80K out and lives in the valley, has student debt, has a car payment. Obviously rent out here is hella high. You know what I mean? And they paid $6,000 last year on interest in student debt. On interest.
Wow.
Like these people have a lot of bills that they could use a relief check for too. So like this is what happens when you mean test things, is you leave people out. And they're okay leaving people out because they listen to Larry Summers and their rich friends, just like Jonathan Capehart, who say, oh, the people don't really need the check. It's actually going to hurt the economy. It's actually going to hurt the economy.
Oh my God, Larry Summers.
Inflation. That's the word they keep talking about.
I about lost my mind at everybody talking about Larry Summers the other day. I was like, nobody gives a fuck about what Larry Summers has to say. Also, they love to remind everybody that so many people live on the coast, right? Like so many people live in New York. So many people live in LA and in California. But they don't seem to realize that $80,000 in North Dakota or Wyoming is not the same thing as $80,000 in the Valley or in San Francisco or in New York City and Brooklyn. And it doesn't go that far. And also that a lot of people's income is not the same as it was in 2019, which is what they're basing this off of. In 2019, I had a full-time job and then I got laid off and then I was unemployed for months. And then I recently got a job a few months ago where I started out making about $28,000 less than I was at the previous job because I could not find a job. And so I had to take the job that would hire me. That's why. Wow. And so they're not taking that into consideration. They want to make it. If they were to do this 50K, I wouldn't qualify for it because in 2019, I was making 55K. And now I'm making about 20,000 less than that. So I wouldn't qualify even though I desperately need it because back in 2019, I was making more.
Right. And for myself, I'm still unemployed. So I'm in a worse position than you. I'm unemployed with no health insurance right now for the last 10 months.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Which you should qualify for Medicaid.
Right. Are you just over the line for that too or something? Which is another bullshit, like, made
up shit.
Just made up arbitrary line.
It's ridiculous, the red line and when it comes to getting some real financial relief. And they keep tossing up the word, inflation, it's going to destroy the economy by giving this money. What the fuck? Where did I get this from? By giving the working class people money, it's going to destroy and take the economy. It's ridiculous.
That's actually the thing I kind of love with it. They're inversing their own argument because they always say whenever they want to give tax cuts to billionaires and corporations, no, it'll trickle down. It'll trickle down. Okay, so then if that's the case, why isn't what's good for the goose is good for the gander? If it's going to trickle down, then why can't giving us money have it trickle up? Like,
what's the difference? Yeah. But we've seen it. We've seen how these billionaires they get their panties in a bunch when the working class people get some type of money or power in our direction. We've seen it with GameStop. We've seen it with the hedge funds. We've seen how they react. They get on TV. Now we need regulations. So we once again, let's just I want to transition into what do you see in the future as far as like I know both of us have been in support of the third party, the People's Party, Movers for People's Party. So do you feel like is this the way to go? You know, have the Dems and Republicans felt this so much that it's not even a point of giving them a glimmer of hope anymore? Do you feel like the third party is the way to go?
I mean, I think it's something we have to consider. And there is historical precedence for third parties, maybe not necessarily winning the election, but winning enough of a percentage or garnering enough attention and support to actually pull the respective party, to whatever side you want, right? And I mean, really, I think we hear rumblings about, the Republicans or, people on the right wanting to form the Patriot Party or whatever, which will inevitably pull that party to the right. I mean, it's hard to imagine how much further right they can go, but they'll find a way, which will inevitably do what to the Democrats? Pull them further right.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly. So, and it's always interesting because the people, on the right who, will want to start this party or who are going forward with that and everything, they always feel like they have a right to do that. And they actually don't really get shamed as much on the right for third parties, because if you think about in 2016, Gary Johnson got more votes than Jill Stein. So technically, if people, were saying, well, all the Jill Stein voters just voted for Hillary Clinton, which is the dumbest argument ever, she would have won. Well, no, because Gary Johnson, I think, got 4% of the vote, right? So they feel like it's their right to do that, and they actually don't get shamed as much on that side about it. Now, on the other side, that's all the Democrats ever do is shame, people for voting for another party, which is your constitutional right. So I think we need a strong third party, whether it's moving for a People's Party or another party, fourth party, fifth party, I don't care. We need enough, because it looks like the Democrats, I mean, they're not going to listen to anybody but themselves, but their corporate donors. They don't give, an F about what I think or about what you think or about, we're trying to hold their feet to the fire. We're trying to, get progressives in there to pull them left. That doesn't seem to be working as well as, we thought it would. So we need to try something else. And if that's a third party garnering enough attention to actually force the Democrats to support, I don't know, like Medicare for all or, some things that the rest of the world has had for literally 50 years, maybe more, then that's what we have to do. But obviously the third party will always be shamed, will always say, oh, it can't win. Well, it doesn't need to necessarily win. It needs to win enough support for the Democrats to get their shit straight and actually support what the majority of their party already supports, right? We're just trying to get them to actually support what the base supports. So I think that's definitely an avenue we have to explore. Something, I, like you said, yourself and myself have already been exploring that. And I think we have to continue with that in the future.
Yeah.
And, does that mean you have to not work within the party and push, use progressives in the party and push corporate Democrats? No, of course we do that. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. We can do both. They're not mutually exclusive. And that's kind of my game plan going forward.
Right. I agree with you 100%, bro. So I'm going to jump into some questions from one of our co-hosts that's not with us tonight. She wants to know, how do you maintain your courage as opposed to being liked and disliked, especially when you're speaking out about these things?
Yeah, I feel like I've had a few moments where I was like, oh, shit. Like, I'm like, oh, this might, oh yeah, you know about this well, right? Like, oh, this don't get me this might get me in trouble.
I'm with you. I got you back.
At the end of the day, though, man, it's like, I really feel like I did make a conscious decision, kind of when I started speaking out more. It's like, I could, just play football. Obviously, I've been playing football since I was 8 years old. I've always dreamed of making it to the NFL. I get to the NFL, right? Like, I'm playing, I'm doing well, I'm succeeding here and there. And I'm like, oh, I know that, obviously what happened to Colin Kaepernick and what happens to people that speak out not only in football, but this is just in general, like yourself. When you're speaking out against, you're speaking truth to power against power structures, you will be singled out, right? But for me, it was like I can either stay quiet and just play out the rest of my football career, and then maybe after start talking. But I'm like, at that point, I don't have the platform I used to have. And at that point, I know what's going on, like, because I actually researched this and I like to be, informed. And so I'm just sitting here knowing what's going on and not saying shit about it. Like, that didn't sit right with me. And I knew that would be something that I would regret. So for me, it's like, I'm going to speak my truth, use my platform to advocate for things, that we need, that people in this country need. And who maybe don't have a voice to speak about that themselves, or don't have a large enough voice to really amplify it and reach people. And so that's where I felt like my role is, where I come in. And so, I mean, every single day, I still feel like I get those little like, oh, oof, I don't know, if I should do this or say that, but it's like, at this point, it's like, I'm reminded by, the courage of really a lot of athletes way before my time who were speaking out in much more tumultuous times than we are in now. As far as like the atmosphere for, athletes speaking out politically, if you look at someone like Muhammad Ali,
Yep.
or, some of the track runners way, way back in the day, Jesse Owens and people like that, Jackie Robinson, like, there's a long history of this. So I'm not the first. I will not be the last. Obviously, with everything you saw with what Cap did in 2016, 2017. I mean, it really can't get worse than that. The man literally got completely blacklisted. So it is what it is. I'm just gonna keep pushing and keep, speaking my truth.
You are very inspiring, though.
Oh yeah, I was
you.
going to say I respect you even more, for even saying that, because I know it takes you're in the billionaires club too, with the NFL owners. So I know what you mean to have that anxiety too. I definitely did.
It's like what they say, like courage is not what's that saying? It's like courage is not being afraid. It's speaking out even though you're afraid.
Yeah.
It's like, and also like you said, like there's a lot of people that are in your position that have a platform that they really could make a difference, and they just don't say anything at all. And so it's always really cool when somebody actually does and uses their platform for something good, and also doesn't speak out on the things that are just safe.
Yeah.
It's like comes a time where it's like things are kind of safe to talk about. And I really appreciate your advocacy, because you talk about things that I know that a lot of people don't feel like it's safe to do.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is like, there was a time where it wasn't really safe to speak out for LGBTQ rights, but that time is not now. People now pretty much understand, at least if you're in liberal circles, that is something that we all share, and it's kind of a safe thing now to advocate for. It wasn't 10 years ago, but it is now. But but if you're somebody who is speaking out against poverty, which people don't want to talk about, speaking out against the billionaire class, against, the racial injustice and income inequality in general, the medical system, how corporations own our country, like all of these things that people really don't want to talk about or reckon with, you really don't see a lot of people speaking out about that, especially liberals, because that's not comfortable, because that talks about their money and they don't want to talk about their money. Yep. And so the fact that you speak out about those things is really, really refreshing, and really, I really admire it. And I really loved when you owned Joy Reid on Twitter, because I find her extremely fucking unbearable. And I'm sorry, I can't stand her. She's so unbearable. So when you owned her on Twitter, I was like, yes, inject it into my veins.
It's funny you say that, because I mean, that kind of goes right into the point I was going to make. That, well, like you said, it's a lot of times it's liberals, and the thing that MLK spoke about it, right? The biggest, barrier to progress will be liberals in the liberal class, because they feel like they have a moral high ground to stand on. Joy Reid feels like she has a moral high ground to stand on. And when in reality, she can't say shit about this entire pandemic, because she spent 2, 3, 4 years trashing the very candidate who was pushing for universal health care, which would obviously improve our situation a lot right now. People could just go to the damn doctor and not come home with $1 million bill, right? She like, and this is what liberals do. And like you said, people will speak out about things that are safe. There's a more recent example, even way more recent than LGBTQ rights, and it's BLM, right? It became safe to speak out about that, but it wasn't safe. Obviously, you see what happened with Kaepernick in 2016, 2017. It wasn't safe. And now it's safe to speak out about BLM, but it's not safe to speak out about pushing people to vote for the candidate who wrote the crime bill and supported every major and minor crime bill, like he would have told you a lot in the 90s. He would have bragged about that.
Yeah.
And put a lot of black and brown people in jail because his crime bill that he wrote did everything but hang people for jaywalking. That's what he said, right?
Mhm.
So, but it's not safe to speak out against Joe Biden. It's still not, even amongst athletes, among the liberal class, it's not safe to speak out against that. And that's why you will receive flack for it, even though you're speaking truth to power and you're enlightening people on who Joe Biden actually is. And it's not that, okay, I just want to see Joe Biden fail. Well, no, even though he's been a horrible, horrible person in the past and supported wars and supported, I mean, he's basically a conservative. He is a conservative.
He is,
neocon.
yeah. He's voted the wrong way on like everything.
On everything.
And that is the reason why I believe that they propped up Kamala Harris's corpse campaign when she ran an awful campaign. And then they put her on the ticket. They did that because they wanted to use a black woman as cover for his horrible policies and how unpopular he is. So then they could be like, you're racist, you're sexist, if anybody were to criticize him. And that's exactly what they want to do. But again, you're right. It's like, it's a more of a safe thing now is to talk about Black Lives Matter in a specific context, like the corporate approved kind.
Right.
But like you can't speak out about Palestinian rights. You can't speak out against, you can't, Julian Assange, you can't criticize the state of Israel else you'll be accused of being anti-Semitic. But again, you're right. And I think, and we were talking about this a couple of weeks on the show, that what you said is totally true. The biggest thing that you're going to run into that is going to be an impediment to progress, as you just said a second ago, and you're right, is going to be liberals, because they are at least, not saying Republicans aren't scum, they are, but at least you know what you're dealing with. You know they're fascists. You know who they are. Liberals pretend to be on your side. And they pretend to be woke and they pretend to be like about human rights and about healthcare, but it's all a fucking mirage. And it's just bullshit. And then there's mad gaslighting when I say, hey, you said you were going to give us a $2,000 check. And some clown comes into my messages and like, what's 14 plus 600? Gotcha. And I'm like, motherfucking gaslighter. 14 plus 1,600 equals 2,000. Gotcha. That's liberals in a nutshell, gaslighting. And so again, that's one of the reasons why I really, really admire you, is because you speak out and call out the uncomfortable truths about liberals that most liberals don't want to call out, because either they are the neoliberals, or if they do see it, they're kind of afraid to say it because they don't really want to be on the wrong side of, they don't want to be on the wrong side of their class.
Yeah, they don't want to get tagged. Yeah, that's true. 100%. And you even, which is, in my opinion, very unfortunate right now, is you see it on the left. You do. You see people that are unwilling to speak out, challenge, criticize people who ostensibly are in power and agree with us on specific policies. That's great. I'm glad they do. But if they don't have a strategy to actually get those policies enacted sometime within the next, I don't know, year or two, when they're up for when the Democrats are up for election, and there's going to be gerrymandering, because they're probably not going to get rid of the filibuster because of Manchin and Sinema. So they're going to gerrymander and redistrict, and the Democrats are already going to be at a disadvantage in the House. So the time is now. And this whole 10, 20-year plan to get Medicare for all, or
progressives in office. That's what they're trying to build up the squad.
Like,
Yeah.
when do you ever think the squad is going to be big? Like in 200 years?
Right. Not only that, but
Right.
there actually are enough of them. The Tea Party was not originally that big.
Mhm.
It wasn't about the Tea Party's numbers. It was about the fear they struck in
Yeah.
John Boehner. It was about the fear they struck in him. It was not about their numbers. And actually, there are enough squad members now.
There
Right.
are.
I totally agree with you, Justin. Like, I'm feeling really frustrated about that because I feel like a lot of it is like, and I was all about it. I was all about the squad, totally
Mhm.
believed in them, donated to all their campaigns, volunteered, phone bank, like the whole thing, was
Mhm.
totally into all of them. It was actually only recently that I kind of went where you are now, where I think a third party is needed. Because it was after, like, I was first, like, my evolution was like, I really wanted to reform the party. I wanted to invest in the Justice Democrats. I
Mhm.
wanted to do all that with, like, really invest in, like, Ilhan Omar and AOC and Rashida Tlaib. It was hoping that they were going to really challenge the Democratic Party. Fast forward now to all through everything that's happened, and I just really don't think that they are. I don't really think that they've shown that they're willing to. Everybody's
Mhm.
making everybody's got pockets and pockets full of excuses for them. And I don't really think that they've shown a willingness to. And so I'm now honestly at the point where it's like, and I agree with what you said. It doesn't mean that we're like their enemy. Like, stop crying, everyone. It doesn't mean that we hate them. It doesn't mean that, like, whatever. It doesn't mean that we even don't still support some things that they do. It means that we're not now unilaterally putting our faith in them and that we think that a different strategy is needed, like, i.e., a third party.
True.
And that they don't necessarily, as you said, have to win the third party. What they need to do is be able to force some pressure
Mhm.
and get on some ballots in order to move the corrupt corporate Democrats that still think that their job is to be like lawyers for, like, like Apple and,
Mhm.
the military industrial complex. And I've seen the way recently that, like, the squad seems to think that they don't have any power, even though they do.
Mhm.
And there's like a bunch of them now in Congress. And the two things that I see them doing is making excuses and just like basically centering themselves constantly on Twitter and just like centering themselves whenever they're doing anything. But also, like, I don't see them using any of their power that they do have to move anything. I feel like they are just basically constantly running cover for the Democrats, like the corporate Democrats, instead of challenging them in the ways that the Tea Party did or in the ways other Republicans did, where they would go out and speak out against leadership. They would. The Republicans are not afraid of their own leadership. Matt Gaetz just went to fucking Wyoming to, like, do a rally against Liz Cheney. Like,
Mhm.
but you don't see the Democrats or the squad, which is what we elected them for.
Yeah.
I didn't fight and phone bake and donate to AOC and to Ayanna Pressley and to Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan so that they could just replace Democrats to act like Democrats.
Mhm.
No, the whole point was you were supposed to challenge the members of your own party, but they don't. They don't. They act like
It's
they're
up to us. It's up to us.
yeah,
And
they just act like they're best friends and they just call her Mama Bear and they just like talk about how like they're doing an inside strategy that we don't understand. It's like, no, you're fucking not. You're not doing shit. You're not doing
And
shit.
Here's a few good examples. One, if you've seen the recent almost progressification of Chuck Schumer, the reason that is, well, one, it's not genuine. And I don't care. As long as he's pushing for the right things, I don't give a shit. It's
Yeah.
not genuine because in the end of December, when Bernie was fighting for those $2,000 checks and he was willing to hold up that damn military bill, Chuck Schumer let that go right through. He
Mhm.
didn't do anything to fight for that
radio silent.
at all. Okay. But now all of a sudden there's rumblings about, AOC and a Senate primary. All of a sudden he's for $50,000 student cancellation. He's for this, he's for that. Great. That's what happens when you have left pressure on someone, when you actually pressure someone's seat in someone's position. That's how you get real gains, right? And you do see a willingness by the squad, if you watch the impeachment after the insurrection, or in regards to impeachment, the squad really pulled Nancy Pelosi and the rest of the party to be like, we're going to impeach this mother. Like, they pulled him there just by sheer will, by sheer blasting everything on social media. They're willing to do it for something that ostensibly won't hurt the Democratic Party, right? But when it comes to something like Medicare for All or a Green New Deal or any of these actual big ticket progressive items, they will not do that. They will not actually come out. She said, look, here's a list of people of your representatives who are not in support of impeachment. Call them, phone bank to them, get them to support this impeachment.
Right.
She will not do that for Medicare for All. Won't do it.
Nope.
Won't do it.
And I wanted to talk about that because you my bro, like you were the catalyst for Force the Vote. And let's just talk about that real quick. You know, you was on Jimmy Dore's show and you called out AOC, and somehow, some way the narrative got changed and all the attention was drawn on Jimmy Dore. And everybody forgot that you were the reason the Force the Vote was even created. Like, it was you. And I was like, well, we're forgetting the message. We're forgetting the policy. Everybody's focusing on Jimmy Dore and whatever, you know, personal issues. Got other podcasters, other people on the left going, attacking him. Ridiculous shit, bullshit. He stole Twitter for like 2 weeks. Y'all remember, he stole Twitter. He stole everything for 2 weeks. Attention. Mm-hmm. But it worked in a sense. You know, I believe AOC was indirectly, you know, tweeting away, you know, trying to bullshit and gaslight. And in a sense, it got enough attention to now people are aware, like, wow, the squad is, you know, they had a hashtag fraud squad. You know, I won't go that far because I respect a few of the members. I definitely respect Cori Bush because I had one brief conversation with her months ago, and I could tell she's a real one, like, so to speak. She's a real one. It's just that I'm not sure how much power she holds yet, you know, her being a freshman. I'm hoping that she'll get there, and she'll probably be one of the ones that will put her neck on the line. I thought she was going to do it by withholding her vote for Nancy Pelosi, but that didn't happen. Gaslighted there. I thought she was, but then you know, the second round or whatever, she voted for her. But just speak about, you know, that whole spiel with Force the Vote. Like, what do you think happened there? Like, why don't do it?
I mean, it's ego.
Right.
It just is. It's ego. I'm not gonna lie to you. Because whenever you're putting yourself, I mean, this is coming. Look, football is the ultimate team sport. Okay.
That's true.
You put everything on the line for your teammates. You put everything on the line for the end goal, right? And if that means I have to come out on a play because Austin Eckler does the play better, or he can run this play and he's more, you know, he has a better tool set for that specific play, I will gladly come out the game, okay? Because at the end of the day, I want my team to win, okay? And the beginning of Force the Vote, that's what I saw. And that's why I was so excited and so energized, and why I felt like, okay, I need to use my platform, whatever little following I have, to pressure AOC, to pressure the squad to do this, because this is a great thing. The squad actually, for the first time, progressives, we have institutional power. We have a voting bloc that can actually affect something, affect some change, right? And so I was like, this needs to happen. And so I'm going to do everything I can to push this strategy. I saw Sam Cedar had been on board for it. He hates Jimmy. He does a Jimmy video every week.
Oh my God, I seen this matchup.
Jimmy. I think Jimmy has a bigger audience than I do.
Yeah, he does. But that's not the point. My name is Brianna Joy Gray, not Jimmy Dore. So I think we should talk about and talk about.
We're talking about Force the Vote.
Okay.
And there's the first name that is listed.
If I can finish the sentence.
Jimmy. Jimmy is Jimmy Dore's logo. Jimmy Dore, and if I have power, Jimmy Dore has more power. Jimmy
Dore can go and kill 15 kids tomorrow, and I still believe in Force the Vote.
Jimmy Dore. I have watched Jimmy Dore for many years now. Jimmy Dore.
It's bad.
Yeah.
In the beginning, he was for it. I was like, holy shit. Like, Jank was for it. Him and Jimmy have been into it for a while. Yeah. I'm like, this can bring us all together. We haven't had anything since Bernie dropped out that we can really come together and push for. So I was like, let's do it.
Yeah.
Okay. AOC came back and responded with some, you know, I'm just going to say it, some bullshit excuses. And the reason I know they're bullshit is because by the end of Force the Vote, she was saying completely different excuses than she was saying in the beginning, right? Because she had seen what other people were saying, defending her, defending the reason not to do this. And
not only that, but not to interrupt, but she ended up using the same excuse for why they should impeach.
Yeah.
Later.
Mm-hmm.
Like what you were saying, some of your defense for Force the Vote that she was saying wouldn't work, she then used as a reason why Congress people should impeach to get people on the record and hold them accountable, that she was telling you was a bad reason for people to force the vote. So it didn't wash.
Exactly. And so, yeah, I mean, everyone saw that. I don't want to really relitigate it too much, but by the end of it, I was really kind of discouraged because I see that even on the left, there are people that will put their ego or their love and adoration for politicians, whether they agree with us or not, they will put that above pressuring them to do something that they said they would do. We came together as a left and said we wanted to do is put pressure on these politicians and so that they support us. And then when the time came to do it, people didn't want to step up to the plate and do it. And instead chose to defend, ad nauseum the squad, which, is frustrating. But I think it really is going to inform the rest of these 2 years, right? Because if you're not pressuring Joe Biden for the COVID relief healthcare plan, because he's just going to, give huge amounts of money and dollars to insurance companies and whatnot. If you're not going to pressure him on that healthcare plan, then how the hell do you think you're going to pressure him into doing a public option later? Something that's even bigger, something that's even a more massive undertaking. If you're not going to pressure him on this small thing, why would I ever believe you're going to pressure him on this large thing, right? So that's why we need to actually hold them accountable, because it's only going to get more difficult.
Right. Remember when we're going to push him to the left after the election, lols.
Right, exactly. And that's what I'm saying. If you're not doing it now, when it's actually pretty easy to, considering everyone's still paying attention and people want these checks. He's at the beginning of his presidency. Obviously, a new elected president has a lot of power. If you're not going to do it now, then trust me, in a year from now, when America's reopened and people are traveling and sports are going on and people are taking cruises and everyone's going about their life and no one's paying attention anymore, because that's what we do in America.
Right.
It's going to be even harder then. You see what I'm saying? So that's why I think this is important.
No, and you make a really good point about even people on the left, not just liberals, people on the left, people we identify with on the left, make all kinds of excuses for politicians. Now, I've made excuses for politicians that I identify with and that I'm on the side of. But there have been times that I've made excuses for them, but it comes to a point. At a point, we need to have some dignity. And also we claim, if you're on the left, and you watch this later, we are the ones who claim that we're not authoritarians. We're the ones who claim that we're not MAGA cult. We make fun of MAGA people for being cultists, but then they'll turn around and be cultists when it comes to people they like. We can't make fun of Trump supporters for being cultists if we're going to be cultists too. I, for a really long time, really loved Bernie Sanders, and I still am going to criticize Bernie Sanders for the fact that he's trying to make $1,400 checks happen too. And I'm no. You said 2,000. It's right. 2,000. And same thing. I, again, really like the squad. And I don't say that I think the squad even now are bad people. People are so dramatic. They go from one pendulum swing to the other. It's I don't say that they're terrible people. I say they're human beings who are subject to the same pressures as everybody else. But they're also not perfect. They're not superheroes. They're humans who need to be pressured to do the right thing oftentimes. And that just because you may like them, just because I like them, doesn't mean that they're always going to do the right thing. You're not my sister. You're not my buddy, whatever. You're supposed to be representing the needs and the progressive priorities of the people that help elect you. And if you're not going to do that, scoot.
Facts.
Well, Justin, I don't want to keep you too long, bro. It was a pleasure to have you. But before you leave, I got to address this. I saw you retweet what's going on with Amazon in Alabama. So thank you for once again supporting the unionization of the efforts of the Alabama workers. And do you have any thoughts on that as well? You know, I came from this long battle for the last 10 months when Amazon's still ongoing. I have a legal case pending against them. I'm traveling down to Alabama. I'm leaving this weekend to go to Alabama and stand in solidarity with the workers and the union. So what are your thoughts about it? Do you think this is a historical moment for us?
I mean, it's massive. Amazon is one of the largest employers, I mean, obviously, in the country. And this could start a snowball. I mean, and then we were all wondering, like, why is Jeff Bezos stepping down now? Weird timing. It's like, he sees it. He's trying to get the hell out of Dodge. So I'm in complete solidarity, with people trying to start a union. I mean, and this is why it's important too, is because obviously with what Bernie and Ro Khanna were doing, Amazon was forced to pay higher wages, right?
Right.
That's not enough.
No.
Good. That's not enough. Okay. They should be still striking and trying, to start that union, because that's what you do when you feel like you're being undervalued. If I feel like I'm worth $20 and they give me 15, okay, well, I'm still fighting for 20.
That's right.
Because that's what I'm worth. You know what I mean? So and so that's why I think we all need to come together, because this could be a huge, kind of a fire starter for just, union density in this country. And Amazon is obviously one of the biggest unions. If Amazon can do it, maybe Walmart can do it. And then maybe, Target can do it. Like this is how things start. So I appreciate you going down there. I appreciate, and I know a lot of, at least from what I've heard, a lot of this is kind of burgeoning out of what you started and way back, and how everyone was I saw people were resigning from Amazon because of the way they treated you. And I'm like, that's how you start some shit right there.
That's right.
It snowballs and it reaches this point. And so, look, I appreciate you, everything you've done for this movement, and I'm really happy you're going down there, and I know you're gonna speak more truth to power and give this more of a platform. And man, I hope to God I hope it goes through, man. I really do.
Yeah, we need to bring unions back in this country.
Yeah,
100%.
And I appreciate your words, man. It's been an honor to have this conversation with you, and thank you again for your time. We absolutely gonna have you back on it.
Oh yeah, please do, man. This was awesome.
And I go to LA often, so the next time I go to LA, man, we'll get up, man.
Yeah, no doubt, man.
It was really great to meet you, Justin. Thank you so much for coming on.
You too, Blakely. Nice to meet you. I'm at the follow. I don't think I follow you on Twitter, but I'm gonna have to get on your Twitter, because I know from speaking with you today, I know them tweets gonna be fired too.
Follow her. You're gonna be laughing. She is. I love her, She's historical,
For sure. All right, appreciate it.
Hysterical. I'm sorry. See, look,
I already follow you, Justin. So
okay, let me hit that follow back. Look, there's a lot of people I definitely need to follow. I just don't be looking at that shit.
Hey, Justin, real quick, what do you do in your spare time though? Like besides workout?
Yeah. I still work out pretty much 5 days a week. Not obviously as intense, but
besides owning people on Twitter.
Yeah, right. I'm actually kind of, and I'll let your viewers in on it, but I am kind of gearing up towards starting my own little show here. Nice. Just because there's a lot. It's hard to say everything. Obviously, we're seeing it here, but it's hard to say everything on Twitter. And really flesh out your ideas. So I feel like I need a better platform to do that. So I'm working on that. But other than that, man, I just love traveling, kind of just going to the beach, just being in nature, chilling with friends, really just normal stuff. I think people think of athletes as some type of and some athletes do live very extravagant lives. But I guess I'm kind of in the working class of the NFL.
We can tell. No, we can tell by the fact that you connect with the people, man. And I hope you never change, bro. I really do. I hope you're the same. And honestly, man, look, if you want, man, we got a spot for you if you want to come host, man, anytime.
Okay.
We on every
Yeah,
weekend.
come be a guest host.
Hell
Okay.
yeah, bro.
Hey, I like
You
that.
gotta put in
Okay.
no work. We got your production. Actually, the production crew is from LA, so that even works out even better.
Okay,
So,
man. I like that. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. I'm gonna definitely come back. This has been one of my favorite shows to be on. So this has been a really fun conversation. So I appreciate y'all for having me on.
Definitely, man.
Aw.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you so much. And
Thank you.
enjoy the rest of your night, bro. We'll be in touch.
Yeah.
Stay safe out there, man.
All right, y'all too. All right. Yep, all day.